to the Media Roundtable podcast. This is another special edition. I'm your friend, Dan Granger, CEO of Oxford Road. And look, we're always talking about podcasts. Takes up a lot of the oxygen. You know, there's an audio channel that some of you may have heard of that actually dwarfs the whole podcast industry in terms of consumption, in terms of revenue, in terms of just the pure scale that it drives in market. And nobody really talks about it anymore because I think a lot of those of us that are more in the business of digital advertising, you know, it doesn't really occupy the conversation, but it's an old friend of mine. Its name is radio. It, in my view, was the forerunner to podcasting for 100 years and was where I started my career for the first decade. We did a panel about it at the Chief Audio Officer Conference that you may have heard something about. This is where we had about 75 of the leading marketers in our space that steward a great deal of money, all assembled in one room. And a lot of it was a knowledge share. You know, I talk a lot and we had a little bit of talent come by, but the most important thing about Chief Audio Officer, the event, the summit that we did at Terranea this year, was that it's really about brands hearing from other brands and what works for them. And so we got three very reputable advertisers to step forward and talk to us about what it is that they do to be successful in the channel. It was led by the great Kim Commando, who, you know, she's famous for being a radio host, but her business is far more than just radio. She's really on every type of distribution channel, digitally, podcasting, and everything else. But radio is really home base for her. And she sat down with three leading brands to talk about, how do you use it? How do you measure it? Is it still even important? Turns out that it is. It's a real influence driver. And I think that it's so easy to overlook this because, let's be honest, radio is not the sexy channel anymore, but it is a scale channel and it is still the biggest. And it is a buyer's market if there ever was one. So if you're looking to expand a business, this is a good one to listen to and to learn a little bit more about how to sharpen the tools in your toolkit. So I'm going to let Kim do the intros on this wonderful panel of friends who stepped up for this conversation, and excited for what you're going to learn.
All right, we're in for a real treat. I'm Kim Commando. Does everybody know me? Yes? Love that. We've supported so many brands with the Kim Commando Show, and thank you for all your support over the years. All right, we have a great group. Come on in. Well, first of all, let me tell you, I love radio, and I love it not just because it made me a very wealthy woman, is that it's intimate, it's one-on-one, and it's probably the first truly wireless. I mean, take that Bluetooth, right? So join us here on the panel. First of all, who would like to go first? Want to go first, Nick?
Sure.
Okay, Nick is the co-founder of Legacy Box.
That's right.
Big company.
Yes.
2 million families
Yes.
taking their VHS tapes. People remember those, right? Slides.
Yeah.
Photos.
Even old film reels.
Film reels, really?
A third of what we process is film from the 50s and 60s.
Wow. And then bringing them into the digital age.
Yep.
225 techs. 60,000 square feet you have?
110,000 square feet.
And now 110,000.
Yeah.
Wow. So how many different personalities have you worked with over the years?
Oh gosh. I feel like we've been on everything over the years.
Okay.
A lot.
But you've never been on my show.
That's true. Okay. I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
Okay. What is up with that?
I didn't know I'd be on the hot seat.
Okay, I'm not going to
Shots fired.
to belabor a point.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Okay. But I'm
we
glad
can
you're
fix
here.
that.
Okay. Okay. Mike, welcome.
Hello.
DraftKings, big company. You're the
Yes.
senior growth marketing manager there?
Yes.
Okay. What a war. Try to win local markets, national markets, where maybe the product isn't even legal.
Yep. It's
And then you
been a
do
wild 7 years.
you do all these great relationships. And one of the things that I will say as a DraftKings host is that every time I do the copy, I sit there at the end and I say, do we really need to have this disclaimer? I mean, it's got to be 45 seconds.
It's a
I
hot
mean,
topic. Yes,
it is.
definitely.
Well, thanks for being here. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you.
Longtime marketer. You've
Yes.
worked with big brands like LegalZoom, Shutterstock, Constant Contact, Chief Marketing Officer. Boy, you've just, and I understand that that performance and metrics is your middle name. Is that true?
It's actually Lewis, but sure, yeah.
I see.
But yeah, no, you're right. All the brands I've worked with, have heavily been involved with terrestrial radio, also podcasts, everything audio. But my specialty is really working with brands to help unlock what I call brand performance media by focusing on just upper funnel. And attribution measurement comes along with that, of course, because oftentimes it's a conversation and topic that you have to have with executives, to get buy-in and
you
trust.
have to let the data speak.
That's right.
I mean, you can have all what the gut feels and what you believe, but you have to let the data speak. So somebody on the last panel, I'm not going to call out any names, but said old school radio. Okay. And radio has been around forever. And I've been hearing ever since I think I started my career 25 years ago that radio's dead. Okay. So let's just start talking about broadcast radio, that a lot of people believe that it's an outdated format. We get so excited by user-generated content or what's happening on social media and Threads and X or whatever it may be. So who would like to start? Let's talk about why radio is not outdated. Who'd like to begin?
I'll start it off. I think that there's this perception with radio that it's sort of slow moving, that you can't really activate really quickly and it's stable. In our industry, that is sort of the opposite of how we operate, and radio is a big part of the marketing piece for us. In our sort of experience when we've launched states, for example, there are times where we don't get much of a heads up, where we need to activate marketing really, really fast. One sticks out of my mind in Illinois about 5 years ago. We got word that we were sort of launching there like with a day's notice.
Wow.
And we had to turn on marketing pretty quickly. I see Bart here shaking his head. We probably scarred them a little bit, but it was a really good experience, and we sort of moved really quickly, worked with a lot of the stations and partners there, and we were able to sort of get live within a day or two and sort of launch our campaigns as quickly as we needed to. We've also seen this in the industry, in that sort of the way that sports moves so quickly. Recently, there was actually a competitor of ours during the NBA playoffs. They have a policy they call it fair play, where if someone gets injured, they sort of refund your bets. And we saw Steph Curry got hurt in the second round of the NBA playoffs. Within a day or two, they were running a radio campaign talking about how Steph Curry got hurt. And they were running promotions saying, we have this policy. And I thought that was a really, really cool sort of activation that they ran. And it just shows that if you have the right pipelines and you're sort of prepared in advance of setting it up for success, you can activate the medium really, really quickly.
And I think, and that says a lot about copy change too. I mean,
100%.
I mean, I can get copy change on Wednesday, and then on Friday, that's just it's recorded, it's approved by the client, it's put in traffic scheduling, and it's that flexibility and the spontaneity. And we're going to talk about host read reads later on. But is there anything that you'd like to add, Ryan, to that?
I mean, I was just going to say, call it outdated, call it whatever you want. we saw some of the slides that Dan presented, people are still listening every day, hours. And, it's not dissimilar to podcasts in the sense that, you get a lot of fanatics and people that just listen to their favorite programs religiously. But the beauty of terrestrial radio and how stations are programmed and the content that they're creating, oftentimes it's Monday through Friday, 3 hours every single day. It's something that people tune into all the time, becomes part of your life, and they're listening intently. And, they pick up what the hosts are putting down, and they live it and they breathe it, and they just become extremely attached to it.
And of course, you've built a business.
Yeah, I think I would want to like flip the perception. I think from our perspective, radio's been a consistent workhorse. It's been a huge catalyst for growth for us. We're a bootstrap company, so we've never had external funding. We started the company just buying ads on AdWords on Google.
Okay.
And we had to make sure every ad dollar worked. Like when you're bootstrapped, you don't have something to fall back on. So people are like, when were you profitable? And you're like, well, the first day or we die, And so, we were tutored in taking these like risks on Google and putting like, let's try $50 in the Google machine, see if that's going to give us back any return. And then we sort of graduated from there to catch the wave of Facebook as it was starting to get advertising. And then we met up with the folks at Oxford Road about a decade ago, and Dan pitched us all these opportunities on radio. And those were really big bets for us at the time. And Oxford Road proved to be incredibly helpful stewards of those tests for us. But we just saw them as massive catalysts for growth, as a megaphone to reach customers that we weren't previously, and something that we saw create a huge halo effect on all of our D2C online
I was
business.
going to ask you about that because that's really important.
Yeah.
I mean, when you do take out radio, do you see lift in your other marketing efforts?
Yeah, I think our marketing mix is more complicated these days, so it's hard to see lift. But I think in those early days when we were more simplistic, we definitely saw it initially, where we test out these radio bets and see this massive lift that we can actually measure. And at the time, was Google Analytics. So we know it's there.
And radio does work. I mean, so often I will tell somebody like, "Oh, I'm on the radio," and they'll be like, "You're on the radio?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm on the radio." But people are listening, and it's kind of for me, I like radio because I love the format. I really do. It also, as a personality, gives me a certain amount of anonymity that now that I'm doing video podcasts, I'm not really keen on that because now I go places and like my sister told me recently, when you go to the supermarket, you really need to dress a little better. And I'm like, but because I guess somebody at the market called her and said, I saw your sister and I had my hair up like, one of those buns at the top and so on. But let's talk about radio when, as far as we know that it has this massive appeal. And, you talked about going into niche markets. When you start talking about radio internally, how do you sell radio to people on the team that are really very digitally focused and they want to buy Facebook ads and they want to do reels and shorts and all that other great stuff, and they may look at you with that stink eye saying like, what are you really thinking? How do you combat that?
Yeah, I'd say we do actually see very, very solid performance on radio, and it's been a part of our marketing mix for pretty much a decade now, ever since I joined the company. And it's in the host that we work with and sort of the way that we buy it and pulse it on and are able to sort of capture, share a voice is an important thing for us during key sporting time periods. And radio is a great way to sort of reach a really big audience. And also we can sort of measure the performance down to a single station and really be able to optimize our portfolio really well. So that is sort of a beneficial part of the fact that we have done it for 10 years is we have so much data at this point that we are able to sort of take a look at it at an ongoing basis and sort of evaluate, where are we seeing success and where should we be investing our money.
Ryan, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to have those conversations these days. You've got CEOs and CMOs sitting in front of investors and boardrooms, and everyone wants their data and their ROI projections based off what you project and what you're going to get out of a certain spend, and it's hard, especially if you're a brand that didn't really start out advertising in radio or audio, so you didn't really see those early growth kind of jumps. If you're already spending across a lot of different channels, the waters are extremely muddy, and it's really hard to get a good gauge and go to your CEO and just say, hey, you will get this from this spend. But if that's the case and you are trying to get started, I would recommend a smaller approach. Try and relate to who you're talking to, your CEO. Are there any programs or stations or anything that they listen to, so they can kind of picture that. If not, start small. Think of what's endemic to your brand. Is there a program, even if it's just in one market, or a station just in one market, that you can focus on and go heavy within that, and then measure the signals that you're getting from that market, and you will see lift. It's just a good kind of small way to approach, and then you can kind of gradually build from there.
And then how did you guys do it, Legacy Box?
I mean, I think it's a little different because my co-founder and I we make the bets. And so I think it was really conversations in the early days with Dan and the team at Oxford Road and saying, hey, these are really tremendous opportunities, and we think these will work for your business. And so we just green-lighted a few tests, and we saw all the potential of radio, and then just kept going down that road. One thing I'll say as an advantage, and I don't know if there's marketing managers that need to pitch this to the powers that be, but it's far less mercenary and competitive than Meta. I mean, it's not as competitive of a space.
Yeah.
And so Meta is so cutthroat. I mean, the competition for attention is so fierce. Why would you not go to a channel that makes that a little bit easier? So that'd be one argument that I might use.
And Meta likes to change the rules.
They do. Yeah, this thing's fairly predictable. It's reliable. It's an anchor, I would say. And we play on all the other dynamic channels, and we always want to be catching the next wave of whatever the coolest, newest thing is. But this has been a nice safe harbor.
So, when we talk about different programs and different hosts, and, it's always been said that radio is really only as good as who's behind the mic, right? Are there specific shows, specific programs that you were surprised by or that just works for your particular product? I mean, obviously with DraftKings, sports is probably it, right? And I know you're on my show,
Yeah.
which I love that. And let me tell you, I don't know anything about sports. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I always say I liked football for the tight end. That's just,
and that's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
But are there any other? I want each of you to think about. Are there particular hosts and formats that maybe somebody in the audience that they're not trying that they might want to try?
Yeah. So actually, a few years ago, it was probably January, and that's normally one of our sort of testing periods is leading up to the Super Bowl. And Veritone and Oxford sort of recommended a host to us, Bobby Bones, who is an entertainment show, and not one that's, I immediately thought of as, this guy's going to kill it for us. But it was worth a test and sort of an important time period for us. And the results were outstanding. We found out pretty quickly that Bobby was a bettor, and he was really enthusiastic about the product. We started seeing him tweet about things naturally. We weren't even kind of caught me off guard, and we saw tremendous results. Since then, we've built a really good relationship with Bobby, and he's been a stable part of our portfolio. And it just goes to show that, if you have someone who's enthusiastic about the product or at least is able to talk to their audience about the product, and we kind of just let them do their thing, you can see great success. And I am a big advocate of testing into a variety of people. And if they know how to speak to their audience, it can resonate, whether or not it's directly sports or some other genre.
And Ryan, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say just have an open mind, first of all. I've seen probably every different type of show and genre work, honestly. From, like I was saying before, endemic type shows, and when I first started at LegalZoom, I kind of inherited some great programs like Handle on the Law, a KFI show in LA, and it was performing great. But then, you build from there and you see, some of the shows, whether it's sports, whether it's, political talk, where people are just like highly interested and highly engaged, mass audience, those can resonate extremely well. But the key, I think, is having the host embrace your brand and understand your brand and be able to speak to it authentically. I mean, that's what we heard from Stephen and Ben last night. It's super, super important. That's probably the key. Forget about genre necessarily, as long as people are super engaged and super opinionated and interested in the content. Beyond that, you just have to have host buy-in.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I've heard it where, and I know everybody in this room has, where you have a host and they're reading the copy, and you're like, oh my gosh, it sounds so, horrible. They're not enthusiastic to even be there. So how can somebody be enthusiastic to actually, go to a website or check out a different product? Now, we're not going to talk about you not advertising on my show. So I won't say it again. I promise. But no, what hosts, seriously, what hosts have worked for you?
Yeah, well, you said surprising, or if there's something surprising, I think what surprised me is conservative.
Oh, really?
Conservative radio has worked phenomenal for us. And, I don't know, we could say what we want about our product. I don't know if you could sort of speculate maybe why a legacy box resonates with conservatives more than liberals. I don't know why. We've tested, like Ben suggested last night, go ahead, test my podcast, test Pod Save America. We did that. We did that multiple times. We've been on Ben for a decade, and Pod Save America's dried out. And so I don't know. That's been a surprising thing. And I guess one thing I'd want to encourage folks to do is to give it a shot. I think there's less competition in conservative because a lot of people are afraid of controversial points of view. But that just means it's more efficient media, and there's opportunities there.
Yeah, but you have a product that everybody needs.
Yeah, that's what's surprising to me about it.
Because
liberals have families too.
Yeah, well, that's right. But everybody in this room, whether they are liberal or conservative,
Yes.
but maybe the conservatives are more concerned about passing it on.
Maybe so.
Is that we have all these tapes, and we have all these slides, and my mother left me with boxes of VHS tapes, and I'm like, okay, now what do we do with them? It's just kind of nuts. When we talk about the hosts and we talk about whether or not it actually works, okay, there's always, use promo code Kim, or go to simplysafekim.com, or go to privacykim, or you go to netsuite.com/Kim. And it's really hard to figure out sometimes if that truly works, right? Especially with Google just filling it in. If you go to NetSuite, you're going to go to netsuite.com. There's no chance to even have that attribution. How do you deal with that, Nick?
Attribution?
Yes.
We've had all these complicated models. We've done the spike analysis. We've had all the promo codes. We've had landing pages. All the stuff that everybody does. And what's shocking to me is just a simple post-purchase survey is super accurate. Tell us where you first heard about us. That's what's relevant in the customer's mind. And even if we've cross-checked that against more sophisticated models, it tends to be very accurate.
And it is accurate. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, we rely on it heavily, and we check it all the time because we're like, well, is that right? Are we skewing the results? Should we ask the question a little differently? Could it be that simple?
Does it help if you have the host's picture on the landing page?
What do you mean?
Like, so if you say to go to legacybox.com/Ben, that if Ben's on the picture,
we just find that so many people, like, there's a portion of people that might go to that landing page, and there's a portion of people that might even remember to use the promo code, but a lot of people don't.
so it's just
They'll hear you on the show, and then they'll just Google you and click on the link.
That's true.
So I think over time, we've seen a diminishing number of people actually going to those kinds of specified pages or using those kinds of codes. And so, not that they're still not a relevant signal, but we find the best signal to simply ask.
That's perfect. What do you think?
We actually do. So we use both. Promo codes are sort of a staple of our measurement, and we do see plenty of people put them in, but it is not the full picture, and we realize that, and it's sort of a triangulation method of using survey results. So we are also asking people how they heard about our product. We have sort of MMM models as well that sort of help us at the high level. So it's a combo of using the sort of grassroots promo codes, the tops down models, and putting that all together and creating a picture and then painting a story of, where does radio fit in the overall mix.
And then, Ryan, do you ever take like a certain percentage to say that, okay, we're going to attribute an additional percentage just because they didn't know where they came from?
Yeah, that's what we used to do at LegalZoom quite a bit, and Mike said it. You kind of want to triangulate. Get as many different data sources as you possibly can. But we had survey methods in play, like Nick mentioned. We had promo codes, but oftentimes there were people abusing promo codes. Like even our own sales reps, would tell people to just put a radio program code in to get a discount and things like that. So the waters again were muddied, but we would always, apply orders from promo codes, compare it against survey data, how many people said that, they heard about us on radio or whatever, and apply a gross up factor based on how many total orders we had versus those reads, and kind of triangulate that way. So that's kind of a tried and true methodology that isn't 100% accurate, but gives you a good read.
Well, see, the reason I was asking about the photo is that we have a client, nativepath.com, and they sell collagen, very much into direct results. And I was in conversation with the media leader, and I asked her, which I always ask every client, is there something that somebody else is doing better and generating more results for you, so that this way I can learn as your endorser what else I can do? She laughed and she said, "You're our number one endorser." And I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." But I learned a lot of things from her, in that she said that, of course, there's a landing page, custom landing page for them. And there's also a custom URL, get native path, and all these other things. But one thing that nobody has ever told me is that when they go to cart, if there's a picture of me next to the shopping cart, that mug will increase the conversion like crazy number, like 70%. And so it's those type of things. Have you ever found like these little idiosyncrasies along the way that maybe might benefit everybody here in the room?
Yeah, I think it's worth saying, for people that go to those landing pages, as highly customized to whatever their introduction to the company was, or the brand or the product was, as highly customized as you can make that, will make that landing page absolutely more effective. So if, we had a discussion yesterday with Shapiro about, could we use your likeness as a remarketing thing on social media potentially? Because if you were introduced through Ben, we want you to maintain that kind of relationship through to the actual conversion. So yes, I think that's absolutely valid.
Yeah, and I would say just sort of, for lack of a better phrase, like using common sense for us. Like we have tried promo codes, we've tried landing pages before. We found that actually that doesn't work for our brand, but it's because we're a heavily app-based product, and sort of the way that we think about it is how can we make it as easy for someone to sign up and also get our attribution. And we found that sort of using landing pages is actually introducing another step to the process of you got to go to the page and then you got to go download the app. So I think it is very sort of brand specific and thinking a lot about the customer and sort of what do they care about and what do they want to see, and how easy can you make it for them to go through that process to ultimately engage with your brand.
Ryan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really have any, data-driven anecdotes about landing pages or anything like that. But, we used to run brand awareness surveys at LegalZoom, and we were trying to track, how many people knew one of the co-founders and spokespeople for the brand was Robert Shapiro. Just for that connection, and was it worth it to have them in TV creative and things like that. And so every time we would ask who the LegalZoom spokesperson is, trying to see if they would say Robert Shapiro, most people would say Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity or Bill Handel, people like that, all of our radio endorsers, by far more than Robert Shapiro. So it was, again, just that connection, that people made, from the radio programs and the hosts reading ads and endorsing them, really made an impact years later.
It does. I was probably one of the first hosts with Carbonite. David Friend, the founder of Carbonite, came to Phoenix, and he had a check for $25,000, and he said, "I want you to endorse Carbonite for $25,000." And I said to him, "I need you to come back when you have $100,000, and so take your $25,000 and go." Okay, he came back like 3 months later with $100,000, and I was the first place where Carbonite ever advertised, before Limbaugh, before anything like that. And Carbonite was with me probably 10 years. And then that was probably maybe 12 years ago. Okay. I still get people who write me and say, "I have Carbonite today." I mean, and I'm like, dude, they haven't even been on the air with us for like 10 years. But we do establish those relationships. The hosts establish those relationships. And that's why it's always so important to get the right host for whatever your brand may be.
Yeah. We still have a common survey response for Rush.
Oh, do you?
Coming through, and it reminded me of the discussion last night about just these intimate parasocial relationships. Like both in the shows, but also with the audience.
So I was I live in Phoenix, and I also live in Santa Barbara. And in Santa Barbara, I generally, because my boat is a little bit larger, is that it's like the race boat. And so this past spring, my boat was the race committee boat for something that was going on. And I had the past president of Univision on. And he came up to me and he said, Kim, thank you for having us on your boat. And I know what you do on radio. And he said, "Do you know what I think of radio?" And I said, "What?" He said, "It's a cucaracha." And I looked, I said, "What?" He said, "Radio is a cucaracha. We keep stamping it out. We have nuclear wars and all kinds of things, but that cucaracha just keeps coming up." And ever since then, I thought, radio's a cucaracha. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for listening to this very special episode of the Media Roundtable podcast. It is brought to you by Oxford Road, where we want you to succeed in this channel that we love so much, and we want you to use your influence for good. As a member of the marketing community, you have the power to advance voices that don't just entertain, but edify, and to build bridges across differences and preserve fair-minded discussion. It's one of the best parts about podcasting, as I call it, the greatest canvas in media for the free and open exchange of ideas. You get to be a part of it. If you're a marketer and you want to align your brand values with extraordinary, life-changing, and it truly can be, business outcomes, reach out to our agency. It's called Oxford Road. Go to oxfordroad.com. Do subscribe to our newsletter. It's called The Influencer, and we love feedback, good, bad, or otherwise. If we can do a better job at this show, you want to give me some tips on how to do a better keynote next year, hit us up, info@mediaroundtable.com. We have a sister podcast that comes from the great Stu Redwine. He leads creative around here, and it is called Ad Infinitum. It is about the business of creating effective advertising using the spoken word. Thank you to everyone, because it takes a village to pull this thing together. I'm not even going to try to thank all the people that made the summit happen. But special thanks to Haley, to Ruby, to Bianca, Kyle, Prince, Rob, Neil, Olivia. The team at Podcast One helps us a lot. As always, please influence responsibly.
If you're a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing facility and your machinery isn't working right, Grainger knows you need to understand what's wrong as soon as possible. So when a conveyor motor falters, Grainger offers diagnostic tools like calibration kits and multimeters to help you identify and fix the problem. With Grainger, you can be confident you have everything you need to keep your facility running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.